Hi, I'm Father Louis SCURTI, and we're here with Monsignor Paul BOCHICCHIO in his book. We are interviewing him again, segment 2, for Along the Way, A Priest's Journey of Joys and Challenges, Monsignor Paul BOCHICCHIO. Thank you for joining us, and Paul and I will continue chatting. Paul and I are classmates from Seton Hall. We both graduated together there. And then I went a different way. I went down south, and Paul stayed in Newark Archdiocese. And you were ordained in May of what year?
1971.
71. And I continued, and I was ordained in December of 1973 after I had been teaching in South Jersey for a while. And I went through different seminary. So the rationale behind the book, putting this together, as I recall, it's letting people know what the ministry and life of ministry was all about. What are the thoughts you want to share with the audience as to the, like you said, the rationale of putting this together?
Well, it was a thought that we all have many wonderful experiences to share, and that sometimes we need to find a forum in which to share them. And I know that many times in our preaching we share stories. The stories, just like Jesus with the parables, there are stories in our lives that reinforce a lesson, from the scriptures. But I also thought, that there were many stories that I wanted to share, even with a larger audience, rather than just the people you preached with or you're to, or people that you counsel, or people that you interact with, that they may find a value, not just in the story itself, but in something they could identify with, something that would resonate with their own experience, and maybe encourage them, to do the same, to reflect, to reflect on the many blessings we have. I mean, there are many struggles we have, there are many reversals we have, but I think our blessings outweigh all those things. But we need to remember that and reflect on it.
That's absolutely positive. So many people you've touched through all the parishes and school and your experiences in campus ministry and education and parish work and as a pastor. Is there one experience for a person going into ministry or interested in ministry that you would say epitomizes or really captures what the ministry of Jesus Christ is all about as lived through a priest?
I would say one thing that comes to mind is when I was vocation director, I was still in the parish. And one of the programs that I had for young men was spend a day with a priest. And I would get various priests, including myself, to have a young man who was interested in the priesthood just come and walk with you through the day.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and I always remember, especially at Our Lady of Mercy in Jersey City, we covered Greenville Hospital and Jewish Hospital, so oftentimes you would have that young man accompany you on the hospital call. And it always amazed me how through the eyes of a young man, or in the presence of that young man, that people would say things to you they wouldn't say to you directly. They would meet a young man, you'd say, he's thinking of the priesthood. Oh, isn't that wonderful? How much we need priests? Oh, I hope I'm going to pray for you. And you realize that what you said before, how people respond to priests, and just to the priesthood in general. And it was always a joy for me at the end of the day when we would sum up the day, no matter what we did, whether he came to a wake with me or a funeral or he was in a classroom with me, they would always say, I never had any idea the priest did all these things.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And these were men who were well motivated, but even for them, it was kind of an enlightening experience. And ironically, many years later, one of the young men whom I had involved in that experience became my parochial vicar at Holy Rosary.
Oh, stop! And can you share his name?
Yeah, Father Sam Monaco.
Wow, that's great.
And he said to me, do you remember when you took me around? And, yeah, since I had done it so many times, I didn't recall that particular incident, but it made an impression on him.
Absolutely, that's great. Oh, being you mentioned Sam, I was amazed at. I mean, the length of the book. Let me see, it's over 200, almost 300 pages. The number of people you specifically mentioned, and many of whom I knew, especially when you talked about Jersey City or our classmates. What motivated you to use their names? I mean, these weren't made up names; these are real people.
You know, in some of the pastoral vignettes that I wrote, I changed names, but for the most part, I used people's real names. It just kind of as a way of affirming them, to let them know that they really had an impact on the ministry.
Right.
And also because it just conjured up a memory, saying, wow, this person, taught me something, just by their example and by their attitude toward things.
Technically, did you ask permission to include them, or did
Actually, I didn't. I mean, I would have for something negative, but...
So you just took a risk. That's good. That's good.
Actually, I was advised that it was more, you really had to get more permission for pictures than for mentioning someone in a book.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. And I guess not to put you on the spot, but who was I'll use character rather than the person. Who was the character that most stands out in your mind? So not...
Well,
go ahead.
Well, I'd have to do that more as a group.
Okay.
They were, and definitely Holy Rosary.
No, I'm glad about that.
With characters,
Yeah, we have them.
And what struck me is they were very real. And I found that generally in my urban ministry, particularly in Jersey City, I found people to be very real and upfront. So much so that when I left Our Lady of Mercy and went to Roselle Catholic, I guess after spending 12 years in Jersey City and then going out to a school in the suburbs, kids didn't quite know how to take me because I was so direct. I was so used to kids in Jersey City being very direct.
Yeah.
People being very direct. But it was kind of that corporate character, especially at Holy Rosary, where in fact, many of the pastoral vignettes that I wrote were about Holy Rosary.
Yes.
There were just things that happened that were, one of them I entitled, "You Couldn't Make This Up."
Yeah. It's true. It's true. We had a great. I'm the obviously I'm the. This is my home parish, so I've been there all my life. I don't go back as much now as I should, but time and experiences to separate us. But it's a vibrant parish and very ethnic, and it's historically the first Italian parish in the country, isn't it? Or New Jersey.
The state of New Jersey.
In New Jersey, yeah. When we sat next to each other, maybe, I don't know what the event was. It wasn't Monsignor's Santora's death, but we were sitting there next to each other in the sanctuary, and you were sharing, during downtime, of course, some of the history of the building of the church that you had researched. Do you recall any of that?
Yes, that when I arrived there, someone brought us a photograph, and they had circled a person in the photograph, and the person was Andrea Cuomo, who was the father of Mario Cuomo.
Wow.
Who, when he came from Italy, he settled in downtown Jersey City, and was part of the construction team that added, construction workers that added the new section to the church in the 1930s, the new sanctuary.
Right.
And then the story was that then he moved to Queens and got into the grocery business, which he was known for. But I remember we sent the picture to Mario Cuomo, and I got a wonderful letter of commendation, and it's talking about how his father often reflected on how important Holy Rosary was to him in his years when he came from Italy, and how he was ministered to there.
Yeah, that's great. That's it, and it connects the past with the future. I mean,
Yes.
of generations yet to come. I think ethnic parishes certainly have a role in our church. So the people coming from whatever country have a familiarity with the language, the culture, and then little by little get acclimated to the American way of life.
Yes.
That certainly happened in Jersey City. We were down and dirty, as they say, very clear. And I realized only when I left Jersey City, many years later, even after ordination, that it was a unique charism, I'll call it, that we had in Jersey City. Calling it the way it was. People weren't used, as you knew in Summit, people weren't used to
that when I went to Bozo
and still they're not quite used to me. But that's about me, not you. Great. Very, very, very wonderful. The writing of the book, did it take any specific challenge? I mean, the thoughts to coordinate all these memories. What was the key challenge that you faced?
Well, I guess it was the time factor. It was like I found that I would write when I was inspired to write.
Okay.
And then I began to formulate or put together the formation of the book. What did I want to say, and how did I want to say it? Obviously the whole first part is autobiographical, and sort of a journey through the parishes and places where I've served, and then the impact of people and events, on how they shaped my ministry. And then the section on essays in the end was just to be able to share my thinking on certain topics that I thought were timely.
They and toward the essays, some of them sound like they could be homilies.
Yes.
And they probably were inspiration for some of your homilies.
Yes.
Is there one institution, parish school, whatever, that stands out as having affected you in your priesthood? I know you mentioned the significance of Holy Rosary, but it could be that. But is there one that you say, well, without this one, my ministry would be very different?
I would have to say Our Lady of Mercy, and it was the formation of our youth group. It happened almost by accident, but I said more by providence, that a confrontation with a few young people one night led to an experience that I would never have predicted. I remember the story goes, there were a kid who threw rocks at me, and I was at that point saying, that's it, I don't want to forget youth ministry. And when I had a young college student say to me, Father, let's go after them. And we did. And we kind of surprised the kids when we came up on them. And I remember saying to the kid who I think to this day threw the rocks, I said, did you throw the rocks? And he said, no. I said, okay, I'm going to ask you again. But before you answer, I said, I just want you to know nothing's going to happen to you, but I think that it takes no guts to hide and throw 3 rocks at a priest and run. It takes a lot of guts to admit it. Did you throw the rocks? No. I said, okay, but they know. And I looked at the faces of the other kids. And then a few events occurred from that enabled us to get the kids together to talk. And that was the beginning of the whole process. And over 12 years, we managed to get 500 kids involved.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
And 3 are priests today.
Wow, really? Yeah. You want to? You share so many names. You want to share who they were?
Sure. Well, Kevin Carter, who is a pastor in Little Ferry now, he's a Newark archdiocesan priest. We had a conventual Franciscan, Bobby Benko, and Monsignor Charlie Antonicelli, who is in Washington. He was a canon lawyer in Washington.
Great. And they're all Jersey City guys.
Yeah.
Good. You did good work. Yeah. Paul, thank you very much. These interviews have been very interesting. Use them as you will. They're going to be on YouTube, and we'll send you all the links.
Okay.
Do you have a title of the next book?
Probably Along the Way To. and lessons learned, lessons taught.
Great. Okay. And I encourage our audience, I'm going to look into your screen. Maybe Jerry will turn it to me right now. This has been Father Louis SCURTI interviewing a classmate of mine, Monsignor Paul BOCHICCHIO, on his book, Along the Way. And he's preparing for book 2. So search it through. Just look up his name, BOCHICCHIO. And I say it so quickly because I had cousins in Brooklyn, I don't know if they're related, whose name was BOCHICCHIO. They're now in Cleveland, Ohio. Thank you very much for joining us, and look for Paul's book online on Amazon or anywhere else you buy your books. Paul, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the interviews, and good luck. If we can do it again, let me know.
Okay. Thanks, Lou.
Bye-bye.